Hello, I'm Bruce DuPois. Coming up today on News Talk, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser offers public support for her police chief following a no-confidence vote by the police union. What should Chief Lanier and her team be doing to put the brakes on a crime spike that has hit the district and other U.S. cities? Also, why, after nearly a year, is there still a leadership void at Metro? The agency has ousted its safety chief in the wake of a new report, but when will the WMATA board choose a new general manager? We'll put these questions and others to D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. Also, the Nationals enter the September stretch run showing signs of life. But have they dug themselves too big a hole? And now that the NFL preseason is over, what sort of team does Jay Gruden have? We'll talk with sports. We'll talk sports with Tom Threlkeld, editor-in-chief of the D.C. Pro Sports Report.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DuPois.
Good to have you with us today, a special edition of News Talk, and we are delighted and grateful to have you there. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser makes clear she thinks Chief Kathy Lanier is the person to lead the city through the current spike in crime. But it's clear D.C. leaders and those in other cities where crime is up have their hands full right now. What's driving the surge in violence, and how should we as a community be responding? D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson joins us now. He's with us each month. Good to have you here. Thanks for spending part of your holiday weekend with us.
Sal, if there are any questions you ask I don't like, can I go into sports and do that part instead?
You know, former Mayor Vince Gray's last words on the as he was here the last time as mayor, he said, "I'll come back as a sportscaster." So you can always reinvent yourself.
All right, I'll try.
Good to have you here.
Right.
What thoughts do you have? My guess is you're talking with just about everybody right now about the crime situation, yes. Other elected officials, citizens, the chief and members of the force. What do you have for us? And this is not happening just here, but to the extent that cities right now across the country are dealing with clearly something, what is that thing?
Well, let me say, there are a lot of thoughts that go through my mind. First of all, those who say this is a crisis, I think they're overstating the problem. And there's no question that there's been an increase in homicides, there's been an increase in violent crime, and we need to get a handle on that. There's a lot of attention to what are the causes behind this. It's clear that there's not an obvious answer, and this is not unique to the district, and that's important as well. There are two analyses that are underway with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and the mayor sits on that, I sit on it, the chief, all the law enforcement agencies sit on it. One is an analysis of the causes of crime over the last 4 years, January 1st to roughly September 1st, each of the 4 years, including this year. And we'll see by looking at each case whether there's been some trend, something that's different this year than in the past. I don't know that there has been. The other study, which is, I believe, coming at the initiative of the mayor, is a look at cases in their entirety, from arrest to final disposition, because there are some who argue that part of the problem that we have is that there are folks who are getting arrested for a violent offense, but somehow they're not being held, put in prison, so that they're back out on the street. And I don't mean back out on the street the same day. I mean they're just back out on the street. And so the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee is going to look at both of those issues. One is going to be fairly short, that is the causes of these homicides, and the other will take much longer to analyze. More important than figuring out what has happened is what strategies are available to try to reduce the incidence of crime, and in particularly violent crime. And there are a lot of ideas out there. And my own view is that we need to turn up the heat on known repeat violent offenders. I think that will get us the greatest returns in the short run.
Having talked with a lot of people here on the show about this topic in recent days and weeks, a couple ideas come forward. One is we can't arrest our way, we can't incarcerate our way out of this problem. The other idea is that when you have a small segment of the population committing acts of violence against other people, society must protect innocent civilians just going, you know, people going about their regular life. Guy gets out of a cab, shouldn't be hit by a bullet from one guy meant for another, and he's caught in the middle. So there is clear tension between those two very valid, I think, notions.
Yes, there is tension between those two goals. There's no question but that the criminal justice system should not be going after innocent people, and police should not be arresting innocent people. And that's really a problem that we've seen nationally, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen here in the district. Law enforcement has got to be focused, has always got to fine-tune its tactics so that it's getting those who are breaking the law and not others. You know, there's a list of 50 gun offenders, repeat gun offenders, who the chief has identified who are responsible for 850 arrests. 850. It's an average of 17.
50 individuals?
Yes.
Wow.
That's an average of 17 per individual. Those folks we should be focusing on, and I'm not saying that we should make their life miserable, because if they want to go straight, we should do everything we can to support them.
But embedded in what you're saying is an indictment of the criminal justice system. The way we prosecute, the way evidence supports prosecution, what judges are doing, whether we have room for people who have harmed others over and over and over again. That's what I hear.
Yes.
Is that what you hear?
Oh, I agree. I think that, and you know, there's a lot of accountability with regard to the police. Some folks may say there's not enough accountability, but there is a lot of accountability. There's a lot of data on arrests, good arrests, how many arrests are thrown out and so forth. But there's very little accountability on the rest of the process. Not to say that it's closed or secret, but the data is just not there. So how many people, how many first-degree murders were there last year that resulted in a first-degree conviction? You can't get that answer, at least not easily. And, I mean, if you ask for it, it will take a long time to get an answer. It's just not clear. And yet, what happens between arrest and final disposition, in my view, is critical in terms of these repeat offenders. Truly repeat offenders, people who truly are a danger to our community.
The Fraternal Order of Police took a no-confidence vote in the chief. They take issue. They they've made the concern public that the force isn't as large as it should be. They say we have a shrinking force at a time when the population of the city is growing, and they've taken issue with some of the decisions that Chief has made in terms of strategy. Yeah. Do you want to comment on it?
Sure. Do I want to? No, I'll talk sports, but I will comment on it. First of all, I think it's a mistake, and I think the FOP is out of touch. The reality is that if we were to fire Chief Lanier tomorrow, and I don't think we should, that would not make the crime go away. It just wouldn't. And in fact, I'd even argue there's a disconnect between what the FOP is saying. The FOP, not all the officers, and the reality, which is that when it comes to law enforcement, it's the rank and file that are actually on the street. And so when they say it's all the chief's fault, they're disavowing themselves of any responsibility here. But this is something that, you know, the FOP has been upset with the chief for a long time. Now, having said all that, the chief needs to take seriously that there are a significant number of police officers who are feeling some unhappiness. And what exactly she does about that, I don't know. I don't want to be just dismissive of it. But I think that, as I said, it's a mistake, and they're out of touch. I would also argue that they've been saying for years that there will be a reduction in the number of sworn officers because of retirements. Nobody disagrees. We've been struggling with this, and the reality is that we hired a huge number of police officers 25 years ago, and at 25 years they can retire and get a very good pension, and so that's what we're seeing happen, and we knew it was going to happen. There's some strategies around that. The mayor's sending a supplemental budget down to try to hire more civilians so we can get more uniformed officers out on the street, and also maybe to pay for some retired cops to come back on a short-term basis. And those are strategies to try to beef up the number of officers.
You'll deal with that in September when you return.
Yes.
Before we get to break, which is coming in a couple minutes, I want to ask you about Metro. We're coming up on an anniversary of sorts. Richard Sarles, the former general manager of Metro, announced September 24th of last year that he would retire in January of 2015. Yes. He retired in January of 2015. It's almost, soon it will be a year since the Metro board was aware that they were going to need someone else, someone new. Yes. Not only do we not have that person, we don't know when that new person is coming. Is the job so tarnished now that Metro is having trouble finding someone good? Because something's going on, and I think it's time we be real about what it is.
Well, I suspect that Metro is having a hard time finding a new general manager, but that's only part of it. The real thing that's going on is that the jurisdictions, the 3 jurisdictions that are on the board, Maryland, the Virginia, and the district
Throwing the feds for fun.
Yes, have been debating what kind of a general manager we want to have. And I think that's an important debate. And I don't think we should rush to hire a general manager who could be here for a half dozen years and get the wrong person, because we get somebody who knows how to run trains but isn't really good at turning around an agency is truly troubled. Their financial situation is a mess. They just finally came out with their 2014 audit that was due 10 months ago. They are on, I'm going to say life support, which might be overstating it, with the Federal Transit Administration, on hundreds of millions of dollars that they're not able to access easily because their finances are such a mess. And of course, we're seeing the safety officer resigns this week. It's a mess over there, and we need the right person to take over that agency.
I can argue either of the competing ideas that appear to be the source of conflict within the board. I can argue one. I can argue another. I can't argue for this, where you have an interim, where you have the safety chief going out the door, where you have performance issues on a regular basis, and where you have the absence of a way forward that only a permanent high-level general manager can provide.
I'm not sure I completely agree with the premise of your question.
You do?
I think that
you think this is good?
No, I don't think it's good, but I think a permanent general manager would add stability, but it's not like that organization doesn't have an interim general manager. It's not like that organization isn't able to move forward day by day. The safety officer would have left this week with or without a permanent general manager. The safety officer leaving speaks to how fundamental the safety, the attention to safety is in that agency. So a permanent general manager would add stability. There's no question, but that's a good thing. But I don't agree with in your question that having an interim means that WMATA can't do anything.
Talking with D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. We will take a quick break here. We're back, though, with so much more. Keep it here.